Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our live coverage of the latest mission from Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. I'm Will Robinson Smith, reporter with Spaceflight Now, and I'll be providing our commentary for the duration of this coverage. It is an exceedingly busy launch day for us here at Spaceflight Now. It is not just a launch opportunity for SpaceX and its Falcon 9 rocket, but also for Rocket Lab and its Electron vehicle, set to lift off. If all holds as it currently stands, these two launch vehicles will lift off within 2 minutes of one another. And so just want to set the table for all of you who are joining with us at the top of the broadcast, and this will be reiterated as we go throughout this. This is our first crack at trying to do two launches that are going to be running virtually simultaneous countdowns at once, so there may be some hiccups along the way. We just want to let you know that we are doing our level best. We're going to give it the old college try and bring you the best live coverage that we possibly can. With those caveats out of the way, just want to let you know if there are some hiccups as we go through the stream. Just be kind. We're giving it our best here. We're T-minus 58 minutes, 30 seconds and counting to the Falcon 9 launch here. Covering our bases with our team. As always, is Spaceflight Now editor Stephen Young, who's running the technical operations of the broadcast and splitting his eyeballs in about 15 different directions to help make this all come about. Our Adam Bernstein is also out and about to track the rocket, the Falcon 9 that is. Also do some still photography on the Falcon flight as well. Michael Caine has the evening off. If you'd like to follow our photographers, though, on social media, you can find them over on X, formerly known as Twitter. Adam Bernstein at ABernNYC. Michael Caine at MD Jr. And of course, be sure to follow Spaceflight Now, simply at Spaceflight Now. We're also on Facebook and Threads as well. We're also joined in our tracking coverage this evening by our friends Chuck Briggs, whose camera view you can see here, as well as Pete Karstens with Max Q Productions. In the center of your screen, you're taking a look at that Falcon 9 rocket at the heart of Space Launch Complex 40, otherwise known as Slick 40. We're now T-minus 57 minutes, 4 seconds and counting away from the launch of the Starlink 6-53 mission. This will be the 28th dedicated launch of SpaceX's upgraded Starlink V2 mini satellites this year. Again, currently SpaceX is targeting a T0 liftoff of the Falcon 9 rocket from Pad 40 at 6:17 p.m. Eastern. It's 22:17 UTC. And if all continues to move well on their countdown, Rocket Lab will prepare to launch their Electron rocket. This is a still image of that vehicle over in New Zealand at 6:15 p.m. Eastern, 22:15 UTC. And just a point of note, while you do see the red band that is near the top of the Electron first stage, which can note that they are using the vehicle, that is not the case this time. They are not going to attempt to recover the Electron first stage. They're using Electron in its full capacity for this flight. 2 payloads on board. One for a South Korean research institute and one for NASA. And so this will be a fully expendable Electron flight. Unlike the Falcon 9 rocket, which you can see live pictures of on the right-hand side of your screen, that, of course, will be reused. At least that is the intent. Worth noting, if SpaceX is able to successfully land that Falcon 9 first stage on the drone ship, just to read the instructions, it will mark the 300th booster landing for SpaceX to date. like to help support our coverage of the space program, there's a quick and easy way to do that. If you're joining us live, be sure to hit that like button just underneath the live pictures you're seeing here. And subscribe to Spaceflight now if you haven't already. When you do, be sure to click the bell icon and turn on all notifications. That way you're alerted whenever we do start these live streams, as well as when new videos are posted to the channel. Speaking of the channel, we are powered by a wonderful community of channel members. So thanks to folks like Accelerated Roadside Assistance LLC, Ali French, Gavin Martin, Butterfly, Jeff Hansen, Josh King, Yonda, Adi, Callistia Lee, and others. Channel membership comes with a number of perks, including discounts at our online shop.spaceflightnow.com. Access to member-only videos here on YouTube, as well as the ability to watch Liftoff in 4K. And in that realm, I want to welcome our newest channel member, Yonda Addy and Cappy Cross, both joining us with channel membership at the pad leader level. Really great to have you both aboard. Glad to have you with us. Last but not least, if you'd like to join in the conversation, you have a comment or question that you'd like to be a part of the show, and it's appropriate for that comment or question to be read on the show, you can use the YouTube Super Chat feature, as our channel member Josh King just did. $10 Super Chat. Thank you so much, Josh. Good to see you this afternoon. It says, earlier this morning, spotted the ISS flying over my house in New Hampshire. It was quite the experience. It's always exciting to see some of the few humans who are currently off-planet flying overhead. There are some great ISS tracker apps. I believe NASA has a good one out there that you can put on your smartphone and know when there's going to be an ISS passover. And if lighting conditions are right, you can even see it with the naked eye. Obviously, a telescope or a telephoto lens will give you a little bit of better vantage point, but great opportunity nonetheless. Also, thanks to SG, another channel member, for a $3 Super Chat. Good to see you, SG. We're currently T-minus 52 minutes, counting. Let's go ahead and talk about the trajectory of this Falcon flight. As we do have word from SpaceX that currently all systems and weather are looking good for today's launch, which is terrific. While SpaceX did not state a reason for why they stood down from yesterday's launch opportunity, likely due to a poor weather outlook during yesterday's launch availability, was only a 30% odds of good weather at the beginning of the window, improving to 80%. That was yesterday. Today, greater than 95% odds of favorable weather. And it sounds like that is still keeping on track, although it is a little breezy out here. You may have noticed our camera bobbing just a bit. Coming back to the trajectory, the Falcon 9 rocket's going to be lifting off from Pad 40 over at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station, Space Launch Complex 40. As is the case with all of the missions sending Starlink satellites to the 6th shell, Falcon 9 will be heading in a southeasterly trajectory once it leaves the pad. Following stage separation, Falcon 9 first stage booster used in this launch will land on the drone ship. Just read the instructions. One of 3 that SpaceX currently has in its fleet. SpaceX will also recover the payload fairings, or at least that is their intent, following fairing separation, a little more than 3 minutes into flight. SpaceX has a pair of recovery vessels stationed here on the East Coast, Bob and Doug. Those payload fairings splash down, supported by parachutes, into either the Atlantic or Pacific Oceans. It's an important part of SpaceX's business model to recover and reuse the fairings whenever possible. As noted in this presentational slide, it saves them about $6 million per recovery operation. Is what that recovery effort looks like as those fairing halves are brought aboard the recovery vessel. Taking a look back at the live chat here, want to thank Josh King for another $10 super chat. Really appreciate that, Josh. Josh asks, excuse me, why did SpaceX remove the cladding of the tower over at Pad 39A? Well, we don't have a definitive answer for you on that one just because SpaceX hasn't provided an explicit explanation, but likely due to cost upkeep and maintaining it against the salty air next to the Atlantic Ocean. Sort of a working theory. Also want to thank Lucky Cheese, great name, for a $2 super chat, saying that they love SpaceX and, unsurprisingly, cheese. And also thanks to a wonderful channel member, Callistia Lee, for gifting 10 Spaceflight Now memberships. Really appreciate that, Callistia. Generosity always very much welcome and appreciated. For our 10 newest channel members, welcome aboard. Glad to have you with us. Be sure to thank Callistia in the live chat if you haven't already. Currently T-minus 47 minutes, 20 seconds and counting. A little less than 10 minutes now from the point at which the SpaceX launch director would typically give the go-ahead for the start of propellant load. So as we are working in toward the start of fueling, let's go ahead and talk about the milestones that we're expecting as those fueling operations get underway. The process starts again at the T-minus 38-minute mark when the launch director will give the call on prop load. If that go-ahead is given, it starts at the T-minus 35-minute mark with both rocket-grade kerosene and liquid oxygen. That RP-1 is loaded onto both the first and the second stages of the Falcon 9 rocket. Liquid oxygen, or LOX, is loaded on board the first stage. Then at T-minus 16 minutes, second stage LOX load begins. Before that happens, though, there's the so-called big vent from the strong back. Happens as the feed lines are chilled. That milestone comes about around T-minus 20 minutes and 20 seconds. T-minus 7 minutes is when the Falcon 9 begins chill down of the 9 Merlin 1D engines. It involves flowing a small amount of liquid oxygen through the plumbing and turbo pumps, helping to protect them from the risk of thermal shock and damage during the startup sequence. About 6 minutes out, the first stage kerosene tank should be full. Then at T-minus 4.5 minutes, we'll see the strong back retract begin from the Falcon 9 rocket. It starts with the clamp arms opening up. Then the transporter erector, or the strong back, will recline about 1.5 degrees away from the vehicle. It stays in that position until liftoff. At that point, it pulls back in a much more rapid fashion to clear the way for the vertical climb of the Falcon 9. About 3 minutes out, liquid oxygen load on the first stage LOX tank should be full. 2 minutes out, same is true of the second stage, and at that point, the Falcon 9 is fully loaded with 1 million pounds of propellant. In the final 60 seconds, control of the countdown is handed over from the ground sequencer to the Falcon 9's onboard flight computers. The propellant tanks are brought up to flight pressure. SpaceX launch director will give their go for liftoff at 45 seconds out. The engine ignition command is issued at T-minus 3 seconds, and if all 9 engines are healthy and ignite, the flight computer will give the command for the hold-down clamps to release the Falcon 9 T0 liftoff, which again is targeting 6:17 p.m. Eastern, 22:17 UTC. And if all maintains on track for Rocket Lab, that will be just 2 minutes after Electron's liftoff. Take a look at the bar chart of where SpaceX currently is as far as Falcon flights on the year so far. It's launched 40 Falcons as of April 18th. Looking to launch number 41. T-minus 44 minutes and 7 seconds. Taking a look at the live chat, it'd be remiss if we went too much further in the broadcast without thanking our wonderful moderators in the live chat. Our thanks to Astro Jen, and I think I saw, yes, Stephanie B is also joining us this afternoon. Appreciate the both of you being with us. Probably do helping to keep things kosher in the live chat. T-minus 42 minutes, 20 seconds and counting. We're anticipating getting some views of Rocket Lab's Electron rocket in about 10 to 15 minutes, give or take. We'll work to bring those to you as we're able and as they make sense throughout this broadcast. As far as what's on board the Electron rocket launch, a couple of payloads here. You can see the launch stack in this image provided by Rocket Lab. The payload up top is called Neon Sat-1. It's an Earth observation satellite, which will be operated by the Satellite Technology Research Center, which is a part of the Korea Advanced Institute of Science and Technology. This is the first of its constellation of satellites, with a couple others set for mission launches in 2026 and 2027. That first payload will be deployed at a 520-kilometer circular Earth orbit. The second payload, which will be deployed by company ExoLaunch, is a NASA payload. So following the deployment of the Neon Sat-1, there will be a second burn by the Electron's kick stage, raising its apogee to 1,000 kilometers from the 520-kilometer point that it'll deploy the initial payload. Following that apogee raise maneuver, there will be a third burn to circularize its orbit before it deploys the payload for NASA, which is called the Advanced Composite Solar Sail System, or ACS-3. Here's an image or a rendering of what it looks like. The primary body of the payload you see there in the center of this kite-like object, which is about the size of 6 parking spaces. In its current stage, it's about the size of a microwave oven, but once it's on orbit, it'll deploy booms that are about 30 feet per length or per side, and then deploy those solar sails. This is a technology demonstration from NASA to further explore the use of essentially solar propulsion in a way to maneuver spacecraft with a different type of propulsive system, as opposed to like a hypergulls or cryogenics, or an electric propulsion system. With this current design, as mentioned, it's about 30 by 30 feet, but it could be expanded to as large as 5,400 square feet or 500 square meters, which is about the size of a basketball court, according to NASA. And if they decide to further mature this technology, they could create a different style of boom, which could support solar sails of up to 21,500 square feet or 2,000 square meters, which is about half the size of a soccer field or a football pitch, depending on what part of the world you're tuning in from. So those are the two payloads on board for the Electron flight. Coming back to this Falcon mission here, we're T-minus 37 minutes, 41 seconds and counting. At this point, assuming that all is still on track with SpaceX, the go-ahead for the start of propellant load should have been given about 30 seconds or so ago. Fueling will begin about 2.5 minutes. Now T-minus 35 minutes, 24 seconds and counting. Let's quickly go through the launch timeline for the Falcon 9 rocket. These are the events as we're expecting them following liftoff of the vehicle. It'll start with a liftoff at 6:17 p.m. Eastern, 22:17 UTC, if all is remaining on track. That'll be followed up at T plus 1 minute 12 seconds when the rocket passes through max Q with a point of greatest aerodynamic pressure on the vehicle. Then there will be a few different events in rapid succession. First will be first stage main engine cutoff, or MECO, followed by stage separation 4 seconds later. And then second stage engine ignition, SES-1, T plus 2 minutes and 37 seconds. The Falcon 9's payload fairings will be jettisoned just before the 3-minute mark. Then at T plus 6 minutes and 17 seconds, the first stage entry burn will begin. That burn lasting 23 seconds. Then at T plus 8 minutes and 9 seconds, the first stage landing burn begins, which is set up the 300th Falcon landing to date at T plus 8 minutes and 31 seconds. Now the drone ship just read the instructions. T plus 8 minutes 43 seconds, the second stage engine will cut off and it will go into a parking orbit. T plus 53 minutes 48 seconds, the second stage engine will ignite for a brief 2-second burn, which will set up Starlink satellite deployment at T plus 1 hour 4 minutes and 57 seconds. And with that, we do have word from SpaceX that fueling is in fact underway, which means SpaceX is committing to an attempt at least at 6:17 p.m. Eastern Time, 22:17 UTC. So that's one on the books. We'll wait and see if Rocket Lab and Electron are also in position to launch 2 minutes prior at 6:15 p.m. Eastern, which is 10:15 a.m. on April 24th down in New Zealand. On board this 28th Starlink launch of the year are 23 Starlink satellites. You can see an image of them here from a previous launch in that launch configuration. Each of them clocks in at about 1,760 pounds, or about 800 kilograms. With their solar panels unfurled, they have a wingspan of about 100 feet, or 30 meters. They use argon hull thrusters for in-orbit maneuvers, as opposed to the previously used krypton hull thrusters. They were built in Redmond, Washington, and will be deployed at about 200 miles, or 3 to 20 kilometers in altitude at a 43-degree inclination. Here's an image from HEO Robotics of what an on-orbit Starlink satellite looks like. This is the V2 Mini variety. You can see the solar panels extending from the main body of the satellite. You can see some clouds hanging out around the launch pad in our wide view here, but again, SpaceX has said that weather is looking optimal for a launch this evening, so may not make for the most picturesque liftoff, especially for those not right here at the Cape, but hopefully we'll see an on-time departure of the Falcon 9 rocket in just a little over 30 minutes. Also want to welcome in Astro Joe this afternoon. Just seeing you pop into the chat. Good to see you. And to our more than 4,600 friends who are joining with us live, first off, appreciate you being with us this afternoon. If you haven't already, be sure to hit the like button. Allow some more folks to find this live coverage and let the YouTube algorithm do its thing to bring more folks to our live launch broadcast as we continue on into the final 30 minutes of the count of at least one orbital launch today. Taking a look at the live chat, want to thank Mr. Chip Chip for a $5 super chat. Thank you so much. Really appreciate that. Asking, just curious, what do you have to do to get a job announcing rocket launches like this one? About how many rocket launches are there each month? Take each piece of the question in turn briefly as we are tracking a number of things here. As far as my personal journey into this, I spent 10 years covering local news for a number of companies here in the United States before I transitioned into my current role as a reporter with Spaceflight Now, part of which includes launch commentary here with Spaceflight Now. There are any number of ways that one can enter into the field of journalism, though. Sort of depends on what your passion is and what type of reporting you want to do, what the medium you want to work in is. My undergrad degree was in broadcast journalism at Northwestern University, so that sort of the genesis of how I got started on a professional track. But again, there are a multitude of ways that you can get into the journalism field, and also lots of great conferences where you can attend and ask a lot of questions of professionals who have been in it and are learning themselves and able to pass on great wisdom, like the National Association of Black Journalists, the Asian American Journalists Association, so on and so forth. Now T-minus 27 minutes, 53 seconds and counting. At this point in the process for SpaceX, they're loading cryogenic helium into the pressure vessels on the first stage. The helium is used to pressurize the main propellant tanks during flight. The same process will happen at about T-minus 25 minutes on the Falcon 9 second stage. Now T-minus 25 minutes, 40 seconds and counting. As we are still awaiting visual of the Electron rocket, let's go ahead and step through our parts of the Falcon 9 rocket, get a little smarter about SpaceX's workhorse vehicle. Most of this rocket stands 70 meters or 229 feet tall with a diameter of 3.66 meters or 12 feet. Most of that is made up by the Falcon 9's first stage. This booster has flown 8 times before. It's going for its 9th time today, tail number 1078 in the SpaceX fleet. At the base of the first stage are, of course, the 9 Merlin engines, which burn rocket-grade kerosene and liquid oxygen and produce 1.7 million pounds of thrust. Around the engine compartment are the black carbon fiber landing legs that will be used to land the first stage on the drone ship. Above the first stage is the inner stage. It's a composite structure consisting of an aluminum honeycomb core, which is surrounded by carbon fiber. In the image on the right-hand side of your screen, you can see the deployable hypersonic grid fins. These are titanium winglets that provide stability and steering for the vehicle as it falls back through the atmosphere tail first like a big old dart heading towards the drone ship. At the top of the inner stage are 3 mechanical latches that attach to the second stage. In that first stage main engine cutoff, high-pressure helium is used to release those latches, and 4 pneumatic pushers ensure a clean separation. The second stage engine nozzle is also housed safely inside the inner stage adapter until stage separation. Speaking of that upper stage, the second stage, powered by a single modified Merlin engine called a Merlin vacuum engine or an MVAC engine. It's equipped with a large nozzle which is optimized for burns in the vacuum of space, hence the name. It produces more than 200,000 pounds of thrust, and it will be fired twice on today's flight to place the 23 Starlink satellites into their intended orbit. The MVAC engine burns the same propellant mix as the first stage, that is kerosene and liquid oxygen. It will ignite a third time after the deployment of the Starlink satellites for a deorbit burn to drive the upper stage back into the atmosphere, where it will burn up to help eliminate the risk of any unnecessary space debris on this mission. Finally, up top are the payload fairings, currently housing the 23 Starlink satellites. They're made up of a carbon composite material that is 13.1 meters or 43 feet tall, and 5.2 meters or 17.1 feet in diameter. To house the payload fairings will be covered a little further downrange from where the first stage lands on the drone ship. They gently splash down under parachutes. The SpaceX recovery vessel that's going to be used to scoop those up out of the Atlantic waters today is Bob. Other recovery vessel, Doug, currently awaiting its next assignment. Those, of course, were named after former NASA astronauts Bob Behnken and Doug Hurley, the duo who flew aboard the Demo 2 mission, kicking off the commercial crew program for SpaceX back in 2020. Currently at T-minus 20 minutes, 54 seconds here on the Falcon flight. Coming up on the start of the big vent momentarily here on the Falcon 9 flight, and looks like it's just now getting underway, which is right on time. Seeing here, now T minus 18 minutes, 25 seconds here on the SpaceX mission. T minus 16 minutes, 48 seconds on Rocket Lab's Electron flight. In a second, we're got about a minute and a half or so left on the big vent here for the SpaceX launch. Fueling seems to be going well on both vehicles here. Again, you're looking at live pictures of both SpaceX's Falcon 9 rocket on the right and the Electron rocket from Rocket Lab on the left. Set to lift off if all remains on track within just a couple of minutes of each other. What you're seeing here is an animation of the primary payload on board the Rocket Lab mission. Again, this is Neon Sat 1. It is an Earth observation satellite. One of a couple that'll be part of the Neon Sat constellation. A couple more Neon Sats are set to launch in 2026 and then again in 2027. Sort of a box within box shot here. So you're seeing again the mission overview animation for the Neon Sat on the left mini box, live view of the Electron rocket on the right, and then our SpaceX Falcon 9 here on the far right. You see the big vent has wrapped up on the Falcon 9 loading here. And now they're beginning to load liquid oxygen on board the second stage of the Falcon 9. taking a look at our live chat here. I want to thank the more than 11,000 of you who are watching with us live. First off, appreciate you being here. If you haven't already, be sure to hit the like button. Lots more folks to find this live coverage as we are now less than 13 minutes away from the planned liftoff of the Electron rocket and less than 14 from the launch of the Falcon 9. I want to also thank channel member Callistia Lee, who's been a channel member here with us for 7 months at the launch director level. Thanks so much, Callistia. And reminding folks to, again, hit that like button if you haven't already. I want to welcome Liz Thomas into channel membership at the pad leader level. Really appreciate that, Liz. Glad to have you with us. Again, channel membership comes with perks like access to 4K views of liftoff from all our missions here at the Cape, discounts at our online shop, shop.spaceflightnow.com, as well as access to member-only videos here on the YouTube channel as well. And we do have word from Rocket Lab. As you can see on your screen, they are in a hold at T-minus 12 minutes as they are working what they described as a ground issue. A new T0 will be established. They do have an hour-long window in this launch today, so extending to 7 p.m. Eastern, 2300 UTC. And if for whatever reason they are not able to launch at all today, they do have multiple backup opportunities extending through the rest of the month. So we will stand by for more information and again monitor things with the Rocket Lab launch and let you know as soon as that hold is lifted. We're now T-minus 10 minutes, 52 seconds and counting on the Falcon 9 flight. Again, still in a T-minus 12-minute hold on the Electron mission down in New Zealand. These teams are working a ground issue. In about 3.5 minutes, SpaceX will begin the engine chill down sequence to thermally condition the 9 Roland 1D engines by flowing a small amount of liquid oxygen through the plumbing and turbo pumps. Currently T minus 8 minutes, 55 seconds and counting. As we continue to see things progress with the Falcon 9 launch, again, still in a hold at T minus 12 minutes on the Electron flight. Let's go ahead and talk about the booster history for this particular Falcon 9 first stage booster as it goes for its 9th flight to date. Its first mission came on March 2nd, 2023, starting with a crew mission. This was the launch of a Crew Dragon spacecraft up to the International Space Station with the Crew 6 mission. Next was April 28th, 2023, a pair of satellites for Luxembourg-based company SCS, the O3B mPOWER 3 and 4 satellites. It was followed up by a Starlink mission on June 4th, 2023. That was Starlink 6-4. 6-8 on August 7th. And then on September 16th, 6-16. 6-31 on December 3rd. Coming into this year, a mission for U.S. Space Force USSF 124 back on February 14th on Valentine's Day. And then most recently, we had the Starlink 6-46 mission on March 25th, which brings us to our current flight of Starlink 6-53. And again, if successful, the booster landing will mark the 300th for SpaceX to date. This is also set to be the 30th launch from Florida in 2024. And as you can see, teams are still in a hold down in New Zealand trying to work a ground system issue for the Electron rocket. You're seeing a view into their mission control there on the flight mission name, beginning of the swarm. 2 spacecraft are on board, Neon Sat-1, an Earth-observing satellite, as well as a NASA tech demonstration called the Advanced Composite Solar Sail System, or ACS-3. Again, still in the hold at T-minus 12 minutes and counting, which means we're not going to see simultaneous liftoffs of these 2 rockets. That event will have to wait for another day. Now T-minus 5 minutes, 32 seconds and counting. We're about a minute away from the strong back retract here on the Falcon 9 rocket. It'll start with the clamp arms underneath the payload fairings opening up and then reclining about 1.5 degrees away from the vehicle. We should also be getting mission audio from SpaceX in the next little bit here. In the meantime, I want to thank channel member Donna Hayes for a $5 super chat. Thank you so much, Donna, for the support and for supporting the channel membership. Our thanks also to Mark Otto for gifting 10 Spaceflight Now memberships. That's very kind of you, Mark. Good to see you again this evening, and thanks for your generosity. And to our newest 10 channel members, if you would, please be sure to thank Mark in the live chat. And last for now, thanks to another channel member, Charles Boyer, for a $10 super chat as well. We are now starting to get some pad views from SpaceX as well.
Strong back retract has started.
You do have that call out for strong back retract underway. See those clamp arms opening up underneath the payload fairings, which looks like they've got a little bit of life on them, so these are likely fairings that have flown at least once. SpaceX doesn't publish typically the flight history of the payload fairings, although I know there are a number of folks who would love to see that data be included in their flight pages. Now less than 3.5 minutes to liftoff. We're coming up on the conclusion of LOX load on the Falcon 9 first stage here. Again, for those just tuning in, first off to the more than 29,000 of you, excuse me, who are with us. Glad to have you with us on a, what is today, still Tuesday? A Tuesday afternoon. If you haven't already, be sure to hit the like button. Allows more folks to find their way to this live coverage. And just to let you know, the Electron rocket is still in a hold at T-minus 12 minutes as they continue to work a ground
Stage 1 LOX
issue.
load complete.
There's that call for Stage 1 LOX load complete. Coming upon the conclusion of fueling in about the next 30 seconds. Now coming into the
Stage 2 LOX load complete.
Now coming into the final minute and a half for the Falcon 9. Hear that call for Stage 2 LOX load complete. The Falcon 9 is fully fueled with 1 million pounds of propellant. The venting you're seeing here are ground gas closeouts.
Ground gas closeout.
You hear that call out here? So we're coming into the final minute of the count. There'll be a few more callouts, and so in order to not step on those, we'll come back to the live chat on the other side of liftoff so we can keep our attention here on the mission. But just note that I do see those super chats. Very appreciative, and we'll acknowledge them.
Falcon 9 is in startup.
In due time. We're at T-minus 43 seconds and counting. SpaceX launch director will next give their go for liftoff, and we'll be headed towards a Falcon flight.
SpaceX launch director, go for launch.
There we have it. Just a little over 30 seconds now to the planned liftoff of the Falcon 9 rocket. "15 seconds. And here we go. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Engine ignition. And liftoff of the Falcon 9 rocket on the 41st Falcon flight of the year. The vehicle has cleared the tower. Now 20 seconds into flight, let's listen to the roar of those 9 Merlin 1D engines. Now coming up on a minute to flight. So far, all nominal. Vehicle's about to pass through max Q, the point of greatest aerodynamic pressure on the vehicle. It's a little tricky tracking today with the amount of clouds. There's the call for max Q. Rocket passing through the point of greatest aerodynamic pressure on the vehicle. We're going to hit a number of events coming up in fairly rapid succession. First will be main engine cutoff, or MECO, at T plus 2 minutes and 26 seconds, followed by stage separation 4 seconds later. That'll set up for second stage engine start, or SES1, and then fairing deployment just before the 3-minute mark. Seeing some onboard camera views of the Falcon 9 here. Now less than 20 seconds from MECO. There you see MECO. Followed by stage separation. And second stage engine start. Getting some pretty solid views considering the amount of clouds that are hovering in the area. Payload fairing separation now underway. You can see those fairings falling away from the Falcon 9 second stage, glinting off the sunlight here.
Fairing separation confirmed.
And these tracking views coming from our friend Pete Karstens with Max Q Productions. Those onboard views from the Falcon 9's first and second stages on the right-hand side of your screen. We have a view of the first stage. Those little puffs that you see there are the cold gas thrusters helping to adjust the attitude of the vehicle. At the same time, we can report that the hold has been released on the Electron rocket flight. Now T-minus 11 minutes, 36 seconds and counting to the liftoff of that vehicle. Taking the final pull right now. Meanwhile, on the Falcon flight, we are less than 2 minutes away from the first stage entry burn beginning. And hopefully, if the clouds keep away, we'll be able to bring you the first stage entry burn here through Pete's tracking camera. Meanwhile, in the Electron flight, we do have confirmation that the team has pulled go for that mission launch. You could see just to the left of the hypersonic grid fin there on the SpaceX onboard views, a view of the Bahamas. So if we got some friends down in that area, there's a chance to maybe be able to look up and see this Falcon 9 first stage booster. With the time of day and the brightness of the sky, it may be a little tricky at this point to be able to exactly capture the first stage entry burn, although we're going to give it our best here. Coming up on minute 6 of the Falcon flight. We're 17 minutes, or excuse me, less than 17 seconds from the entry burn beginning in real time. The time you want to look for with these onboard camera views is the bottom of the screen, the SpaceX feed time, coming out on about a 10, 12-second delay. Oh, there you see the start of the entry burn in real time. Well done, Pete.
Stage 1 FCS is saved.
Stage 1 entry burn startup.
And there you see the start of the entry burn here on the SpaceX delay, and the end of the entry burn in real time. Very tricky to track through the clouds, but well done, Pete, on that.
Stage 1 entry burn shutdown.
You see the shutdown of the entry burn coming up on the landing burn now in just over a minute.
Stage 2 FTS is saved.
And once we have the first stage booster here on this mission touch down on the drone ship, we can get confirmation of good orbital insertion. We will pivot back over to the Rocket Lab launch. So be sure to stay tuned for that. You get 2 for the price of 1 today. Now 7.5 minutes into flight by the SpaceX count.
Stage 1 transonic.
Falcon 9 now transonic, traveling below the speed of sound, and you can see the speedometer continue to drop rapidly there on the bottom left-hand corner of your screen. Coming up on the start of the landing burn, less than 10 seconds from now.
Stage 1 landing burn.
You see the landing burn now getting underway. Should see views from the drone ship momentarily.
Stage 1 landing leg deploy.
And with that,
Stage 1 landing confirmed.
this is landing number 300 for SpaceX. The 300th time a Falcon booster has landed on either a drone ship or safely on land.
MVAC shutdown.
And with that call for MVAC shutdown
Nominal orbit insertion.
and that orbital insertion call, it will go into that coast phase until T plus 53 minutes, 48 seconds, until there's a 2-second burn of the Falcon 9's upper stage. That will set up for the Starlink satellite deployment at T plus 1 hour, 4 minutes, and 57 seconds. And again, that was the 300th landing of a Falcon booster. Congrats to SpaceX. Now we turn our attention to our second launch of the day. This is, again, for those of you just joining, the launch of Rocket Lab's Electron vehicle down in New Zealand. We are T-minus 5 minutes, 36 seconds and counting to the liftoff of the mission called Beginning of the Swarm, with the primary payload being an Earth-observing satellite for a South Korean research institute, and the second, a solar sail technology demonstration from NASA. We're now T-minus 4 minutes, 27 seconds and counting. Let's listen in to Rocket Lab Mission Control as they continue to step through their count, head towards the liftoff of the 47th Electron rocket to date.
LD GC mission.
GCLD.
ECS disabled, pad also sequences armed, pad ready for launch.
Copy, thank you. To all operators, LD mission code. From now on, there should be no red flags on your critical LCCs. VCON LD mission code.
LD VCON.
Lock the auto sequence and confirm.
Auto sequence is locked.
VCON, please confirm all expected primary flight computer ASCIIs are green.
Confirmed.
We go for auto sequence start at T-minus 2 minutes. LD is go for launch.
You heard that good call out. We're now go for launch, less than 2.5 minutes to liftoff of Rocket Lab's 47th Electron rocket to date. Again, on board an Earth observing satellite, which is the primary payload for this mission, called NeonSat-1. Also, NASA's Advanced Composite Solar Sail System, ACS-3. It's a technology demonstration which will see a microwave-sized satellite expand to about 30 feet on each side.
Vehicle is fully on internal power. AFTS is green and enabled for flight.
As you see here on your screen, the launch auto sequence has begun. Coming up at the T-minus 2 second mark, the Rutherford engines will ignite. We'll see a liftoff in about a minute and a half.
Lox load complete. System is in recirculation.
The Electron will pass through max Q at T+1 minute and 7 seconds. Similar to a Falcon 9, there will be a few different events in rapid succession. First will be main engine cutoff at T+2 minutes and 24 seconds, followed by stage separation at T+2 minutes and 28 seconds. Then the Rutherford engine on the second stage of Electron will ignite at T+2 minutes 31 seconds, followed by fairing separation just after the 3-minute mark.
Anti-geysering is disabled.
You could see the clamp arms on the transporter
Stage 1
erector
and Stage 2 tanks are pressed for flight.
have opened.
High flow engine purge enabled.
We are T-minus and 20 seconds and counting.
Let's listen in for this final terminal count.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Liftoff.
Vehicles clear the flight, safely launch pad.
Begin pitch over.
Stage 1 propulsion is nominal.
The beginning of the swarm has begun its ride to space with that clean Electron liftoff from LC-1. Electron's trajectory will take it up and over the South Pacific Ocean as it heads away from the launch pad. Our first mission milestone will be max Q, otherwise known as maximum aerodynamic pressure, which is the moment where Electron experiences the most amount of stress as it climbs through the atmosphere. We're coming up on that moment now and expecting to hear the call for max Q shortly.
Heat-free battery discharge nominal.
Cleared max Q.
That is Electron clear through max Q, with the rocket now at 15 kilometers in altitude and moving at over 2,200 kilometers an hour.
Next up, Electron will perform 3 actions that are only seconds apart. The first is called MECO, or main engine cutoff, and this is when the 9 engines that you can see glowing at the bottom of the rocket there shut off in preparation for the second step, and that move is called out as stage separation, when the first stage of Electron separates from its second and falls back to Earth. Now the third call out after separation should be second stage engine ignition, when the single vacuum optimized Rutherford engine fires up to maintain the mission's course to low Earth orbit. Now those 3 events are approaching fast, so we'll bring up the audio channels from mission control now.
"15 seconds to staging.
Entered burnout detect mode.
MECO confirmed. Stage 2 ignition confirmed.
Stage separation successful.
There we go, that was MECO, stage separation and engine start on the second stage. We have had a nice clean camera feed of those things happening, with the camera view now held on the second stage engine as it powers the mission on. Beginning of the swarm is now over 100 kilometers above Earth, past the Kármán line, and moving at more than 8,000 kilometers an hour. The next mission milestone is fairing jettison, or separation of the nose cone, and that's what protects Neonsat 1.
As you just saw, fairing jettison is now complete. We dropped those 2 fairing hubs early into the mission because they're not needed for satellite protection anymore now that we're through Earth's atmosphere. That dead weight is gone, and the mission is now a step closer to our first payload deployment at 520 kilometers.
We have a couple of minutes to go until our next mission milestone, and that will be the battery hot swap on the second stage, currently expected to take place at the T+6 minutes 20 second mark. Right now though, Electron's second stage is continuing along nicely to our target apogee of 520 kilometers for our first payload deployment for KAIST. This KAIST satellite is the first of up to 11 satellites planned by them, which will help to increase the program's observation rates of once every 2 to 3 days to 3 to 4 times daily.
And you're seeing that payload right now for KAIST there. That is the Neonsat 1 that you just saw on your screen. Still a good burn of the second stage Rutherford engine, as you're seeing here. The next milestone coming up is we're now about 4.5 minutes into flight. Less than 2 minutes away from the battery hot swap, which will come up at T+6 minutes and 21 seconds. Given the right camera angle, we actually may be able to see the used battery falling away from the upper stage of the Electron rocket. It's a unique feature of an Electron flight, that battery hot swap. That'll follow up by the second stage engine cutoff for SECO 2 at T+9 minutes and 11 seconds. And stage 2 will separate from the kick stage 4 seconds later.
T plus 5 minutes 32 seconds, and our launch operator's next call out will be for the battery hot swap. Our rocket engine's pump is battery powered, and since it's been flying for a while now, its power source is starting to run low. So, to keep the engine and the mission going, Electron's engine power system swaps to a new battery pack for fresh and continuous energy supply to the electric pumps. The old set of batteries will be discarded, which you can sometimes see on the screen as it happens. So let's listen into mission control for that call.
Hot swap successful.
And as confirmed by Mission Control, battery hot swap has been completed for the second stage Rutherford engine. Propulsion remains nominal, and the mission is continuing on its journey to that first payload deployment with KAIST and NEONSat-1. Now, of course, once NEONSat-1 is deployed, that is only the first of 2 satellites to be released on this mission. Electron is also carrying NASA's Advanced Composite Solar Sail System satellite that will be deployed at twice the altitude we're heading to now, from 520 kilometres above Earth to 1,000. To do that, we'll first need to repeat the stage separation process we completed earlier in the mission, this time separating Electron's third stage, or kick stage, from the second stage that's currently firing hot on your screen. That second engine cut-off milestone, which you'll hear called out at SECO, is expected at around 9 minutes into the mission.
So as you saw, a successful battery hot swap on the Electron upper stage. So far, all going smoothly with this flight. Taking a look back here a little closer to home, you see the transporter erector on the pad here at Space Launch Complex 40 is back in its upright position, part of SpaceX's process of turning around the launch pad as quickly as possible to get from flight to flight. Rocket Lab is now less than a minute away from second engine cutoff, or SECO, on the second stage. That'll set up for stage 2 separation from the kick stage. Let's listen in.
Engine cut-off on the second stage, the last action this stage will perform for the mission. Much like with the first stage, Electron will power down the Rutherford engine on the second stage to allow the kick stage to separate cleanly. We time the engine shutdown for right as we reach that target perigee of 250 kilometres. Let's listen out for that engine shutdown and stage separation now.
SECO confirmed.
Stage 2 separation confirmed.
A great call from Mission Control. The second stage engine has turned cold and the kick stage has separated, ready to begin the payload deployment process. Now, this mission, of course, is a little different to a regular Electron mission, so here is a reminder of how today's 2 deployments will work. Now that the kick stage has been released, it will now go into a phasing orbit of Earth. Because it's been set into an elliptical orbit from its perigee, it needs to head around to the other side of the planet to an apogee of 520 kilometres before it fires up the Curie engine to course correct into a circular orbit. Now, once it does, NEONSat-1 will be deployed to begin its mission for KAIST, and that will be Phase 1 for the kick stage.
Phase 2 will see it light up its engine again to perform an apogee raise to 1,000 kilometres, the target altitude for NASA's satellite. That apogee raise will bring the kick stage out of a circular orbit and back into another elliptical one. Here, the kick stage will do another half pass of Earth before the dots reconnect again at 1,000 kilometers, where it will light up its Curie engine for a third time to circularize its orbit before payload deployment.
Once that's done, it will be on to phase 3. The Curie engine will ignite a fourth and final time to undo its circularization and bring it back into an elliptical orbit. This orbit lowering maneuver will help to speed up the kick stage's deorbit, doing our best to keep space as tidy as possible. For now, though, we will leave you with a graphic of Electron's coast phase ahead of that first Curie ignition, and we'll come back to this.
We're going to go ahead and peel away from the Rocket Lab stream as they're just now about to go into their coast phase. Before we go ahead and get to our mission stats, do want to do as I promised and thank the folks in the live chat who have supported us for a very busy day of live launch coverage. If we'd like to continue on with watching the stream of Rocket Lab's mission, which will go for another about an hour and a half through deployment of the NASA payload, we have the link for that for you over on our website, spaceflightnow.com. Again, that's spaceflightnow.com if you want to continue on with the Rocket Lab Electron launch. For now, though, I want to thank 12Z Train, one of our channel members, for a $5 super chat. Thank you so much, 12Z. Our thanks as well to Joe Betta for a $2 super chat, and Angel in the Airwaves for $1 as well. Our thanks to Callistia Leaf, channel member, for a $20 super chat. Thank you so much, Callistia, for supporting us at that level. Callistia says, go Falcon, go SpaceX, go Electron, go Rocket Lab. Thanks, Will, Mods, and all of Spaceflight Now for bringing us this amazing coverage as always. Appreciate y'all. Well, we appreciate you, Callistia. Thanks for your ongoing support. And live from a monkey's brain with a $2 super chat, noting Max Q for the win again. Kudos, I believe, to our friend Pete Carsons with Max Q Productions for helping out with some stellar tracking today, as well as I will shout our own Adam Bernstein and Chuck Briggs as well for some great work today. With that, turning to our mission stats, this was the 9th flight of Falcon 9 booster tail number 1078 in the SpaceX fleet. This was the 326th Falcon 9 launch to date, the 41st Falcon 9 launch of 2024. This was the 269th Falcon booster reflight, or the launch of a booster that has flown at least once. This was SpaceX's 42nd launch of the year, including the 3rd integrated flight test of Starship. This was their 112th orbital launch within the last 365 days. This was the 181st orbital launch from Pad 40, and the 236th overall orbital launch from this pad. Taking a look now at the bar chart of where we stand now. SpaceX 41 missions on the year. You can tell now we're now more than all of the missions of SpaceX's first 6 years of flight combined so far in just the first 4 months of 2024. Moving on to some recovery stats. This was the 79th landing of a booster on the drone ship. Just read the instructions. This was the 233rd drone ship landing overall. And as mentioned, this was the big 300th landing of a Falcon booster on one of SpaceX's drone ships, or a land landing, all of them combined. Moving out to some industry stats. This was the 30th orbital launch from Florida, the 44th from U.S. soil. Because things actually kind of shuffled around, this is actually the 47th orbital launch of a U.S. rocket company, although number 48 just happened with the liftoff of Rocket Lab's Electron rocket. And Again, a little bit of some number shuffling because of the delay, but this was actually the 77th orbital launch, the SpaceX mission. Rocket Lab takes the 78th spot. 2 orbital launch failures on the year. This is where we stand on the global pie chart. The U.S. now with 48 missions in 2024. China with 17, getting ready for a crew launch later this week up to its space station. Russia with 6, Japan with 3, and Iran and India with 2 apiece. Certainly been a busy day for launch coverage, but if you want your fill with one more, we are tracking a launch of some more Earth observation satellites. These ones, the Worldview Legion 1 and 2, looking to lift off from Vandenberg Space Force Base tomorrow afternoon. Tomorrow morning, technically, from the Pacific Daylight Time standpoint. Window opens at 11:30 a.m. Pacific, 2:30 p.m. Eastern. And that will be a land landing for those in the Southern California area. So be aware that you may hear a sonic boom as that Falcon 9 first stage makes its way back in towards a landing over at landing zone 4. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and wind down our live coverage today. I want to thank, of course, P. Carsons with Max Q Productions and Chuck Briggs for helping to support our tracking views. Big thanks to our moderators in the live chat, Astro Joe, Astro Jen, Stephanie B. Thanks to the 3 of you. And if Rusty Shackelford is keeping things going over at Launchpad Live, a big thank you to him as well. Our thanks to our launch photography team. Michael Caine had the evening off. Adam Bernstein, though, hard at work. You can find his launch photography over on his handle on X. That's ABurnNYC. You can find all of Michael's work at MD Caine Jr. And while you're there, be sure to follow Spaceflight now, or if you don't have X/Twitter, you can find us on Facebook as well as Threads. Our thanks, of course, as always, to our editor, Stephen Young, for running the technical operations of this double launch broadcast for today. Successful liftoff of both the Falcon 9 and the Electron rocket. Falcon 9 booster back on the drone ship, and the kick stage well on its way to deploying its first of 2 payloads for CAST, followed by NASA. Again, you can follow along with that launch by looking up this article on our website, spaceflightnow.com. For all of us here at Spaceflight Now, I'm Will Robinson Smith. Be good to yourselves, be good to others. We will see you next time. Bye-bye.